I can remember one time I was working with a reinsurer in New York City, and the rumor has it that he had interviewed like 78 people and hadn't hired anybody. So I got the guy on the phone. I said, he goes, I've interviewed a lot of people. Okay, and I said, well, why haven't you hired anyone? He goes, I just haven't found someone with that if factor. He goes, I just don't know what it is that I can't define it. He goes, but I'll know it when I see it. And as a recruiter, you interview people, and every once in a while you interview someone and you get off the phone and you say, that was a great candidate. So I'm putting two and two together saying, he's looking for the type of person that I'm going to say that about. And fortunately, I interviewed a guy out of another reinsurer who had the exact background he was looking for, and it was one of those times where I got off the phone and I go, wow, that was a good candidate. I said, I'm hoping my it factor is his. And sure enough, he was interviewed. He had 2 interviews. He was hired, and it was like the guy said, thank God. I said, well, it seems like our if factors are about the same in this case. So we got lucky. Yeah.
I had this one client, cancer company located in Maryland, that was looking for a PhD level scientist. Once I received the search, I knew immediately who I was going to call. There were a number of candidates I had been in touch with recently, but one specific that I knew had family from Maryland. So immediately I got on the phone, I contacted the candidate, made him aware of the opportunity with my client. The candidate was quite excited to hear that not only was it a potential position back home with family and friends, but it was also a step up in terms of level. Presented the candidate to the client. Client loved them. Candidate loved it. They interviewed. They were offered the position, and I was able to put that deal together because I kind of knew who to call because of the location of the company.
So as recruiters, we talk to a lot of people, every day, but there's a select group of people that you really stay in contact with for whatever reason. Maybe it's a client that you have a good relationship with, or a candidate that just made a really good impression on you. And there's one specific candidate who was in central Pennsylvania, who had great experience working for some large manufacturers of CNC equipment, but very early on in his career. Because of the recession in 2009, or that general time frame, he lost his position and had never been able to get back to it. But that's really where his heart was. So he had interviewed with maybe 10 or 15 different employers, none of which would give him a chance. So I was able to convince one of my employers, who initially objected, just to talk to him on the phone. No real commitment, just have a 10-minute conversation. If you don't like him, we'll move on. They talked to him for 10 minutes, ended up hiring him the next day. So we were able to get the guy back in the industry and get my client somebody that they would have looked right over had it not been for me.
Another story that comes right off the top of my head, I had an individual who was doing a 6 weeks on, 1 week off travel schedule. And what that means is he was going and traveling 6 weeks at a time and then being able to come home 1 week at a time. He had a family, he had small kids, he wanted to see them. So when I got on the phone with him, he was like, Dave, I'm traveling way too often. I'm missing out on the small things in life with my kids. So right away, I went in searching for a position with him that would get him to his town and be home substantially more. The reason why it's such a success is that I actually found him a position where he was doing Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, home every single night. He was able to help his kids with his homework. He was home on the weekends so they can go and do things. So that in itself makes me feel good, just knowing that I helped the family.
One recent story that comes to mind is we had a client who manufactures some plastic molding machines. They were looking for a field service tech, someone to travel to different customer facilities, repair their machines, maintain them, install them, and they were having a hard time finding this type of person. I mean, it's pretty specialized experience. There's not a lot of people that like living on the road, traveling day to day. But we eventually found them someone who had the experience in the field, had experience with their specific machines, but the issue was he lived about 3 hours away from the company's facility. And normally that would have been a deal breaker, but I sat down with the manager, with the candidate, figured out the best solution to that problem, and now the guy's working there. He loves his job, the company loves him, and everybody won in the end.
I was working on a search for a client where we needed to hire somebody to develop a custom motion control system. And we had interviewed several candidates, and we finally found somebody that we really liked. The problem was getting them in for an on-site visit. The scheduling was not lining up. The director, the CEO, they were going to be at a trade show, and it would have been a couple of months. So I proposed the idea, why don't we have him come to the trade show, speak with the CEO, speak with the director, and have the conversations right there. It's an hour from his house, so it's right in his hometown, and it would be a nice, easy fix. And we avoid him taking an offer with a competitor while we wait around. It actually went very well. He ended up starting, and it was a great fit.
One story that I have is not so much a story about the candidate, but it's a story about the client who was a young man who had been born with cystic fibrosis. And part of the treatment for cystic fibrosis is that somebody has to come and thump your chest every day to get all the goop out of it. And so this kid had been going along like this for so many years, and then by happenstance he went to a concert, and he was near the speakers, and the reverberation, he must have been near the bass speaker, and the reverberation from the speaker when he was just standing there made him start coughing, which is what you need to do to get the goop out. So he was like, wow, this is really cool. If only I could think of a way to do this, I wouldn't have to, have somebody, the nurse, whoever, come in and bang on my chest every day, which might be nice. To make a long story short, he invented a vest that the patient could put on, and then it had some sort of adjustment, and when it got to the right oscillation or whatever, the vest would do the same thing that these speakers did and make him cough. And the advantage of it didn't cure the disease or anything like that. It was really more of a management tool. But the nice thing about it is that you could just put it on and then go about your business instead of having to lay there for an hour, because that's how long it takes, like a half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, something like that. So, the placement itself was relatively routine. It was, a regulatory affairs guy, because he was trying to get this vest approved as a medical device. And so, like I said, the placement wasn't really that eventful or interesting. But it was nice to be able to help him, because it was such a cool thing that he had done, and it was started out for his own self. But not only did he make his own disease better, but he made a whole ton of money in the process, which was, he did eventually get approved, and it is on sale now. And so he made himself a lot of money in the bargain, and I got a placement fee.
A story that comes to mind is I actually had a candidate who we were working with, just about to accept an offer, and then all of a sudden he stopped answering his phone, and we're like, oh, there has to be something going on. Come to find out, his wife's appendix burst. And, obviously everything came to a grinding halt when that happened. So I actually sent his wife some flowers, said, I hope you feel better, from Diedre Moire. Guy called me up right when she got out of the hospital, and he said, you know what? I know I need to work with this company. You guys are great. I'll always, send people your way, just from sending his wife some flowers to get better.
Recently had a candidate, he was flying in for an on-site visit. He was going to be meeting with the CEO and some of the directors of the manufacturing group. And when he checked into the flight, he had a carry-on, but they overbooked the flight and they made him check his bag below when he stepped on the plane. When he landed, somehow they lost his bag. So here he is in jeans and a t-shirt, and he has to go to the hotel real quick, and he has 10 minutes to get ready and get changed. There wasn't enough time for him to go buy a suit or to get a new outfit because of the traffic that day. So I called everybody he was going to be meeting with and explained to them what the situation was, so he didn't have to feel uncomfortable showing up underdressed. And it actually helped him interview better, because he felt at ease, because they were aware of the situation, and he ended up starting a couple weeks later.
We had a client down in southern Texas, a manufacturer of extruded pipe, and they were looking for someone in upper management who had technical expertise in their specific process. And a lot of the times managers, production managers, are good leaders but don't have as much technical experience. And this company had never worked with a recruiter, never hired through a recruiter, but they were having such a difficult time, they were willing to try anything. And what I was able to do is reach out to my network, and after talking with a couple people, we discovered a passive candidate who had all the technical expertise, had worked for one of the company's competitors in the past. He was local to the area, about 3 or 4 hours away, and he was only passive because of a medical condition that he was currently in recovery for. But I set up a meeting with the company. It ended up that the guy was a perfect fit. He moved his family to the area a couple hours away. Everybody loved it. And last time I talked to him, he loves his job. The wife's happy, the kids are happy, and the company's happy.
One placement I always felt really good about was a guy who was living a 10-hour drive away from his house, spending $700 a month to stay at a place in Tampa when he lived in Greensboro. I had a client in Charlotte, which is about an hour and a half from Greensboro. They liked him. They offered him a job. He was able to get a position that paid him $10,000 a year more, got him 9.5 hours closer to home, and they also gave him a sign-on bonus that he could now use that sign-on bonus to pay his rent, which he got for $400 a month. So he ended up paying over 1.5 years of his rent with the sign-on bonus. He could drive home on Wednesday night if he wanted to. And he had a better job on top of it.